I'm going to make an admission that maybe many of you would also like to make, but have been too shy or afraid to actually speak it out. I need other people. And by that I mean, isn't it strange that we have a society where, like, the typical version of health is being like an insulated unit that's like you have to prove through your silent suffering that you can be self-propelled? That, like, it becomes normal, this idea that we are lonely islands unto ourselves. I want to speak to the ones with ears to hear. I want to speak to the ones who do that dance that I call love, that shared relational contact all the way down. Embodied presence as a gateway to that place where we meet each other and, like a chorus, create something that we couldn't do as an insulated unit. And when you look around nature, I talk about mechanics and chromotosynchrony, and I'm going to get into that. So think about it. In society, it's almost that we tune these representational layers, and that your whole identity begins to live within that layer as like a function of being the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker after generation of human beings living in society. And so instead of the hunter-gatherer, and not that I'm trying to make some sort of ancient argument, I'm just trying to say this is another way to look at it. When animals, as we know them, react to the environment, there's not a lot of representational filtered mechanical delay. In other words, the tiger just pounces. Now, a human being walking around in a downtown city is going through so many little layers of like a glove upon reality, of like simulated presence, like advertisements popping up on a screen, that their embodied presence, their ability to maintain fidelity of contact across the textures of self as they, saunter that sidewalk, with all the ads and all the things popping up on your phone and all these different ways of trying to slice reality. Do you feel it? There's a way of being anchored in the slicing, in the separation, in the observational distance of being, just always habitually as a version of safety, a few steps away from the fire of what is life, the fire of what is reality. And so, the reason I talk about the mechanics is because I could be like many of the other creators you see on here, and not to hate on anyone, but you'll hear what I'm saying. There are ways to point out what's happening on this earth right now as this is the ascension of our, whatever, whatever I don't want to tease anybody, but you get what I mean. Like all these mystical phrases, which they're pointing to the same thing because I can feel the love in their heart. But when I point to the mechanics, it's something that you can actually look at mathematically and within, physics and the really nature, like fireflies turning on together. And then that gives you a really, really good hint that's much harder for your brain to argue with in that representational layer. It's just a hint. You have to jump yourself. You have to dance yourself. But then some sort of mystical thing that's going to, in a way, turn a lot of people off towards like, oh, that sounds like it's like a bunch of like hocus pocus crystal stuff. And they don't even understand what that stuff is even pointing to because they're sitting so deep in a representational layer, they're staring at the shadows on the wall of Plato's cave. And so I speak the mechanics to be very specific in a way that I believe takes away the most delay that I can give you, that I'm still using a finger to point to the moon and say, that's the way to the dance floor. Someone like Jesus say, I and the Father are one, but I point to the dance floor and say, there is a way of being with reality. I like saying dancing, that all your textures of you touch all the textures of reality, and that's felt as embodied presence. And you know it because you can ask yourself right now, have I been present today? Have the people around me been present today? If you've been lost in your head, kind of like one of those drives that you've been driving for a long time. You're like, I don't even know how I've been driving. So it's fair enough to say that the dance is shared contact. And I always you hear me talking about permeable sovereignty, how you find the deepest self in that shared relational contact, how on the dance floor, when you let yourself go to the music, that's when you're finding your most specific dance. And last time I had a bare booty, that was really fun. But this time I'm sure I'll do a booty shake at some point. So in other words, see what I'm saying? I'm not speaking mystically. I'm saying mechanically, your deepest self, your deepest sovereignty, your deepest me as fuck feeling, fidelity, dance, presence happens when you become permeable to reality. Like listening to music and letting it all in, and then the dance that comes through is not constructed. There's no delay. It's almost like a lossless, matching of waves, like a DJ, where they're synchronized, right? And that's where you, paradoxically, for the ones who are still staring in Plato's cave, now, Ember, I don't care how many fingers you point with. I feel safe when I feel distant. I'm not trying to tease you, but you can't coerce anyone out of Plato's cave, okay? So I'm trying my best to like rustle you awake, to be like, I'm going to point with every way that I can and expose my heart, because I think that saying I need people in this strange world that is now shifting is still a thing that it's almost like coming out. It's like, yeah, I believe that us as human beings are best in decentralized organization, where we all achieve our sovereignty through shared relational contact. And that's how organization should persist. I'm not making an argument to you. I know what saved my life. I'm just saying, taste it, chew on it, masticate on this possibility, especially when I go into the mechanics and how much it already touches the cosmos as we can see it and view it with some of our deepest systems thinking. But I also like to talk about it through my life, so you get every finger I can give you, because it's all pointing at the same thing. Love, shared relational contact. The gateway to love is shared presence. Do you see that? It's all mechanical there. Okay, so getting a little personal now. I have been on this like epic saga of burnout for many years now. I tell you in many of my videos, what I like to call echolocated myself. It's almost like you hear sounds and the way it bounces off of things, and you know that they can find their way with the way that sounds bounces off of things. So in that same way, when you let yourself permeable to reality, because think about it, I'm a neurodivergent trans woman, so the only way that I could find breath as real contact, not a mediated contact, not buffered contact, not I'm going to see you through the layers, especially before transition. My being was literally dying of thirst. The thirst at the deepest layer for love as shared relational contact, not love as an internal feeling that someone feels about another person, as like an emotion, but love as that place where across our differences we can meet each other. And no, not everyone has to smooch on everybody, all right? But when it comes to family, real family, and when it comes to people that your soul really binds to, like two dancers on a dance floor, you can't dance with everybody on the dance floor. They're not all going to match you. But some of them, the textures of their soul will really match you. And so that is what I'm talking about. And I'm trying to point to it mechanically too. But I'm saying that even between me and the field of reality, it's the same mechanic. If I can let it permeable all the way in, I actually find my deepest self there. So then my echolocation throughout my life was, wearing different clothes in an environment that I grew up at, like this totally closed representational layer. I'm closing every door to real, authentic soul conversations type environment. Call it narcissistic, but I'm not here to give psychological diagnosis. I just know when someone's shut off. I had to survive. I had to try to breathe. Like every part of my being wanted to breathe through everything that I had. And what was breath but shared relational contact? What was breath but feeling myself in the dance without that little stutter, without that endless loop of rumination? Do you hear what happens when you don't contact reality? This would be contacting reality. The frequency of what you are, the oscillatory harmony, you could say, right? When that touches completely the sound, like think about it, like you're dancing to music. When you touch all the way down, that's when your most creative dances come out, right? The ecstatic creative dances. So then, in order for me to do that in the environment that I was in, it was it was like a difficult process. And so for me, it felt more like reaching for heat than it did like an unknown, like not top-down processing of like, oh, like whatever, like I'm looking to be a woman. No. And that's why I like telling my story too, because it kind of talks about like the nature of identity and how people don't understand identity. Hint, hint, identity is related to shared relational contact. Plato called it a long time ago. But so I had to keep throwing myself vulnerably into these situations. And every time I would get a ping back, like an echolocative ping, right? And it would say, there, not in top-down concept, but in this bottom-up feeling where I can't deny it. Like where you hear the chord struck so deeply that there's no like debating. There's not like a pros and cons. It's like, that's it. That's me. I feel like me. I feel present. I'm hearing all the music. I'm listening to the textures of the little instruments. I never knew there were hi-hats in there. You've had that experience. I know you've had that experience where you're listening to like a favorite song of yours, and like you're driving in the car, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I never heard that there was like a little bit of a drum roll there, you know, and maybe you heard it in the right headphones. There was like, before, it was like a loss of fidelity. And even though you were hearing the music, you were literally conscious. Your life was passing you by without ever hearing those little drum rolls. And then one day you said you happened to be in contact enough that you heard the drum roll. That was my echolocation of my life. And so then I got to this stage as time moved on, because you hear the base of it is love. The base of it is shared relational contact. And before, coming from the environment that I came from, I could not like admit, in a way, like my whole being, not that I knew it and I just didn't know, but almost like a PTSD person who like, you know, like can't think of the actual memory. And a lot of the therapy takes a long time for them to, I talked about MDMA therapy in the last video, but some of the therapy takes a long time to like open up that place. For me, it was almost like I did not know. Like I did not, people like, did you always know and you just kept it secret? I was like, no, like I was trying my absolute hardest to like, to where I could find that vulnerable place where reality met me, in that place where it goes ding, and I was embodied and present, right? I'm not talking about something mystical or floaty or ideas, or I learned new philosophies or repeated certain mantras. I'm saying I felt like I was really fucking here. Like I was really fucking real. I'm not trying to give you an idea. And when I found those moments, it like sort of brought me closer. And what, because I found it through shared relational contact, Burning Man, raves, music, my dress, the way I tried to ask for a relation, for example, from my ex, all these different ways that I tried to say, is there a way that you can touch this spot that I'm not even sure how to touch, but I know when you'll touch it, and I have ideas of how to touch it, right? Like between my clothes and, you know, me wanting to be Little Spoon and like all these things, which by the way, I'm dying to be a Little Spoon, please, someone. But yeah, so then like things got like so intense across time that I got to like a level of extreme burnout. It's because like my life, I led it through, you know, a want towards the magnetization of love, you could say. And so I always was moving towards family. And so I got married. I was with her, even though, like I say all the time, I'm only interested in men. I'm still looking for my man out there, okay? So if you want someone who knows how to walk, talk, and speak, and sing, and dance, and I'm also a lap dancer, love, and cook, love, and lots of other things that you can also feel right here, then, yeah, you can DM me. But, anyway, you see that, like, I was, you know, focused on, like, and the relations in my life are, like, my dad, and anything that went wrong, I went to my dad. Like, my brain was like trained to like always filter it through my dad. Like my sovereignty, my biggest decisions in life, going to law school, like what I would do with different, you know, business things, or how I would move my career. It was always through my dad first. And so like in a way, like we had a very, I thought, a close relationship at the time. That's what I was seeing. And the interesting thing about my life, and I like to, you know, sort of talk about everything, is that being trans, I became the splinter in a system that could not enter shared relational contact, that could not approach the fire of love directly. And I can only talk to you about like what I've done and the mechanics and what people have said in the past, but you're just gonna have to feel it. So imagine me over years. I mean, because I had experiences where like I would be like wearing like a pair of shorts, and I woke up in my little Ember head, even though I didn't know my name at the time. I was like, I really just want to feel like me. It's like hard to be around my family. So I want to wear these shorts. And we were going to the beach, right? And I was wearing these like shorts, like that had holes in the side or whatever. And then my dad yelled at me and said, "You're, whatever." I can't even say it now because he basically just said that whatever, misgendered me at the time and yelled at me and said that like there's no way I could basically wear those shorts. They just had like holes on the side and stuff, and they were all the way down to my knee. Not that I need to make excuses, but like, so then imagine growing up in an environment like that, but throughout my whole life where like I get literally yelled at in a breakfast place at the top of his lungs, where my sister was crying because I was wearing shorts. And that's over a whole lifetime. So it's like creating this suffocation. What is a suffocation? Not having that direct contact on the realest part of my topology, the realest part of my soul, the part of me that I find in the dance, the part of me that I spent my entire life echolocating. And then it got closer and closer to coming out, right? To like unveiling this to them. And like, it's funny because they would blame me. Like, for example, like my ex would blame me and be like, "You forced me to watch your lap dancing." And I was like, "I wanted you to be part of it because like I was there's the only place in my life that I could feel like this softness at the time. And I was dancing to the girliest songs. And like, I wanted to invite her to be part of it, and like, I'm like, but she took it as pressure. It was like pressure. It's like, "You're making me do this." And I was like, I don't even know how to like, if you can't talk about it and I can't like do the dancing around you, I don't know how to like get in like what is happening to me, So it was like another like, and it, not only, with my ex, but also with my family. And it was just like closed door after closed door after closed door after closed door. And you can never get to that place. And you know what I'm talking about. You've been with people that you try to dig into the real stuff, the stuff where you're talking about like each other's souls, right? And like they just can't. Like, it reminds me of another story I always say, like a family member who said, "Oh no, I can't do mushrooms because I can't," a former family member, "I can't do mushrooms because there's so many skeletons in my closet that I never look at, and I don't want to open those. Life is perfectly fine now." And I'm like, people do this? Do you see this? They as a buffer of safety, they keep a constant buffer. They literally have to keep a buffer because that's how their brain was tuned to be a person in society, not the way animals were tuned to that instantaneous, like whatever expression, expression being, that pouncing on an animal instead of like, "Oh, did my auto insurance renew? I'm gonna have to go to, my job. Oh no, there's a red light. Blah. Oh, the phone text." And like all these things, they don't themselves actually slice reality. They're just part of the texture of the unified field, right? They're just like the texture of the one inextricable unfolding that we call this reality. But then our brain has a tendency, if you're not paying attention, and you might be looking at the shadows on the wall, to cut reality habitually as an anchor. It's almost like you first go to cutting it, which really cutting it is like a distance, because the true contact comes from letting it all in. Do you see what I'm saying? And then think about if you truly find yourself in the deepest shared dance, then what does that mean for the people who've never let it all the way in? So I was talking to my family over time, and first I came out neurodivergent. Imagine this, coming out neurodivergent to your, and there's people who are neurodivergent who are in the know. They're like, like when someone comes out, you kind of like ask them like, "Hey, like, how does this like affect you?" Like, you're just interested to see, I'm here with you. That's really what you're saying. I am here with you. I want to know more about the texture of your soul. That's really all you got to say. You know what I mean? And like my family literally said, "You're insane. You got to go to a mental asylum." They helped my ex take my kids away when I literally read my life story and said that this is why I think, and at the time I was digging into like my attire and maybe liking guys and like all this stuff that was beginning to emerge, and they called me crazy. That night my dad told me to screamed in my face to end my own life. And my ex knew, and then they all took the kids away. So like, what happens? I'm not calling them evil. I'm saying that there's a systematic way of like habitualizing yourself to reality that keeps a distance, and then you can get this like these terrible situations that I want to talk about. And I'm not saying I'm pointing out a character flaw. I said I'm saying there's a way of not letting in the light of reality in a way that can result in these types of things. And my trans coming out was just a really good, honest human example of when these things can actually sort of be at their highest friction point. But there's many friction points in our world. So let me just say this. Like there was a moment for example, just to give you an idea of where I've been. So all these years of coming out, right? And there was a moment where I like had this like, I think I was playing soccer or something, and I hurt my leg, and I got like an infection, and I kind of just, I was working as a criminal defense attorney. I just kept going to work, you know. So again, I wanted to point out that, like, you know, my life was always headed towards love. So family, I never wanted to be a criminal defense attorney. My dad kind of like, sort of corralled me into it in so many ways. I don't know why my brain was siphoned of my own sovereignty, but really it was because I valued family more than anything, which is interesting after what I'm about to tell you. So then I wanted, my ex to like be a stay-at-home mom, and I wanted to work next to my dad because he's an attorney too. And then I realized that once the veil came up and I showed them my full, naked self, my full naked soul, it's like instantly pushed out like a piece of trash. Like instantly told to die, called a cockroach, get hit by a truck, you look like a crack whore. Like all of the above, will never accept this. Instantly done. After like 11 years of being a criminal defense attorney, and then also with my ex, like not one real conversation about my transition, my gender, how it affected me, nothing, zero. And then she became the new daughter. So it's like, I just want to give you an idea of what's going on, because a lot of people say a lot of things against me, and the main thing of what I'm saying in this video is that I've been so thirsty for a long time. And as I stand here today, I'm stronger than I've ever been. And when I wake up as me, it's sacred to be me. And I just had that bottom surgery realization that I said in the other video. I'm so excited for the life that's coming up. I don't know how I get there quite yet, and I've been alone for a long time. And that's part of the reason I'm making this video, because I'm so goddamn thirsty. There's got to be other people out there that find themselves in shared relational contact and truly believe that love and friendship and, found family are things that we share our full soul and don't have to speak through the buffer or the performance or the mask. So imagine that I had this infection on my leg, and it got so bad that, like, when I went into the doctor, they said you should have come in sooner. Like, this could have gotten really bad. And so in other words, and I've heard other trans women talk about this before transition, that like, it's almost like you live, and this is a very interesting thing to say too, and I'm being very vulnerable about it. Like, I lived in like a rattle can of simulated presence. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted to transition, even for my own children, to be more me, more present with them. And now it's me all the way down. I'm like absolutely grateful and blessed. And like, even though my life is so pressured because of the divorce and all the things happening, and I've lost everyone, and no one's actually entering shared relational contact with me just yet. So, so like, just like I've heard with other trans women, I kind of overlooked my body because I was so stuck in the representational layers that, like, it's almost like you become disconnected, like a floating head on your shoulders. And I know there's some of you out there that are either feeling this or have gone through something like that in your lives. What am I saying is the ailment? What is the solution? What is the solution here? Is it that you need to take like, some sort of strange medication that switches something off or on? No, not necessarily. No, it's, can you let the light all the way in? Maybe that's part of it for you, but regardless, can you let the reality, like the music of reality, all the way in? Like, you're a sponge, and a lot of us have been trained to be so hurt that you can't. And the actual parts of ourselves that are so disconnected are the parts of ourselves that we learn to never show, to never dance out, to never actually let reality touch, to never let naked to the sun, right? And that is exactly what Plato was pointing at. And more specifically, we can call it mechanical delay. Like, before you actually interact with reality, it's like being, delay, or representation, or shadow, and then expression. Do you see that? And like, everything, even relationships, become like this like filtering of, reality in a way that like delays you, like a stutter on the dance floor, right? So I was in this state that I was working all the time. I was like not sleeping, and I tried to speak up. Like, I could feel the pressure boiling, and it was like pushing me in a way, like to say like, something's got to change. And for me, that was because I was trans. It was like all the little things that they thought, oh, you're pressuring me with watching your dancing. Oh, why are you making dinner weird by talking about love? What is this love? My dad literally said, what is this love thing you're talking about? I'm like, am I living in like a weird fucking horror movie? Like, what the hell is this? because like I just kept trying to like, and I didn't realize that was the one thing that a system tuned to the representational delay or like the stutter on the dance floor or not permeable system that creates this insulated individualized self. That's the one kryptonite. They will freak the F out if you actually say, hey, can you be authentic? Can you like actually let our souls touch and affect each other? And that's really difficult for someone like me. So yeah, I came out neurodivergent and they said it was fake. I was crazy. My ex even said it was fake on the stand. But like, it was fake. It was crazy. And then like, so like, in other words, I'm not going to talk to you about it. I'm not going to be permeable with you about it. I'm not going to open a door with you about it, but I'm going to, so then the interesting thing happens that like when, I don't think that like, especially someone like my family, I don't think that they don't love me. Like there's love in there, but the love has to go through so many layers, and they're trained to treat love as like a certain distance. And for someone like me who was going through really a lifetime of burnout, that I had to like save my own life by leaping at a time that there was no one around me. Imagine going from a life where I was a criminal defense attorney, I had my ex and 2 kids and my family, to everyone calling me crazy, making up stories about me prostituting myself, like helping or like the case corral my children away from me to suggest that I'm unstable while never talking to me. I mean, my dad literally said on the stand, I don't know what's wrong with her, but there's something wrong with her, like, oh, she used to be really great before when she was dead name, but now there's something wrong with her. I don't know what it is. And I'm like, it's so funny because there's like, there can't be, if it wasn't so cruel and painful and horrible and like a dark horror, movie, it would be funny to be like, but you've never once like knocked on my door. And I've been transitioning for like more than a year and a half, and you like never once came by to see me. But there's just something anomalous to the point where my own father will help my ex get up on the stand and try to say that, whatever, I'm so wrong. And I want to talk about that. But don't you see how, like, when I was so burned out, the message that I kept getting was try harder, like do more. Basically, good luck. Good luck. Thanks for, I had enough of this authentic conversation, but good luck. Peace. Like that type of, and I got it from everybody around me. And I was like, and I know many other people have experiences. I'm like, this is like, it's like a weird Truman Show. Why is this literally like my entire family? And like, I had songs I wrote, I had charts explaining like how my past affected me and like suggestions on ways to connect. I mean, I tried everything, it was bizarre. And so like transition is, it's not a thing for me of overriding the self. It's coming into contact with myself. It's finally that lifetime of echolocation led me to that place that when I finally took HRT, I cried because how sacred it felt. That after a lifetime of simulated presence, of never being able to do my full dance, of trying to go to everybody that I thought loved me, and then I created my life around and say, this is me. After all that, I finally found myself fully on the dance floor, like fully with my feet on the ground. In embodied presence, in a presence that I never moved away from myself. It's almost like before I was like one of those little like Mario Kart, things like the ghost that you sit behind the go-kart or whatever. And then like, like imagine like pre-HRT, this is the first cart and then I'm the ghost cart. This is like my consciousness was the ghost cart. It's mechanical delay, right? But then when I took HRT, it's like when the 2 become 1, you will enter the kingdom. You ever heard that? You ever heard what happens when you go to the lossless sunlight, in other words, direct contact across all the textures of yourself, and then come back into the cave as Plato said it? They said they would kill you. Why? Because you're pointing out their representational layers. And even my own father on the stand, you know what he said? He said, yeah, we've been worrying that something would happen to Ember, like suggesting that I would like end my life, right? And he's like, yeah, we've just been preparing the family. And I'm like, no one has ever come by once to see me or really call me. And they're like, well, she's a goner. So how do you begin to like prepare for death before you can ever invite beyond the membrane life and love and family? It's not that he's evil. That's what I'm telling you. It's not that somewhere deep in that filtered heart, he doesn't love me in some way that still exists. But no one goes through those steps without ever talking to me, without ever trying to come into contact with me. It's a system that's running, not from me, but from itself, right? From himself. And what does that look like? In the past, he's told me to, told me to die, called me a cockroach, called me Hannibal Lecter, told me to get hit by a truck. He'll never accept this. Like things that just destroyed me while I was offering him hugs. And because I knew it was a direct contact issue, right? So like, imagine that. That is the ultimate example. And it's like, it just leaves me with this feeling of like telling the truth. In other words, this is me all the way. Can you come into direct contact? In other words, when you let the music affect you, that's when you find direct contact. So it has to actually get in. You actually have to let it in. And then that's where the decentralized dance happens. That's where you find yourself. That's where love unveils the deepest part of that shared dance. And letting it in is different from saying I care or saying the family's concerned. We might really lose her. But we won't call her. We won't actually cross the membrane to create that shared relational contact, because their entire lives have been based behind the veil, you could say, behind the shadows. That I'm not saying is a character or moral judgment. I'm saying systems in this reality can become tuned to mechanical delay. People in this world have become habituated to knowing themselves through observational distance. So it's almost like the old structure was saying, like the old way of relating, and I'm gonna say old because a lot of us are moving into this, more like love-based thing and presence. It was like, don't tell it, please don't tell the truth. Whatever you do, don't tell the truth. Because the truth would mean that they have to come into contact with themselves. Do you see how decentralized systems work? So like people ask me, and sorry, this is the one time I had like a few notes because this one was such an important one to me. But people ask me that like what I'm gonna do, and what I always respond. But this is one of the horrifying things that I wanted to say in this video. Like, I lost my whole family, right? And like literally, it's been this horrifying process of like slandering my name, calling me crazy. My sister ran my Burning Man camp, so she got me kicked out without anyone ever talking to me. Imagine that, being with the Burning Man camp for 10 years and no one actually ever talked to me. They never talked to me. Do you see that? I was with that camp for almost 10 years. I made a lot of the traditions there. We had so many good memories. And the second I get kicked out, I went there last year. They bounced me out physically. And I went looking all cute. And I'm like, I have boobs now. And they're like, we don't care. And I was like, huh? like what? It's almost like this, I'm in some sort of weird movie. It's like so weird, But the key is that closed off heart that does not let the contact in, right? So people ask, what am I going to do now that I'm in this like really crappy situation? Yeah, just like everything's pressuring my life at once, and I wake up alone. And honestly, that the reason that transition helped me is because it allowed me to get breath, because I felt myself again in that presence and that sacredness I explained. And so it gave me like a second breath after years of being literally so burned out that like my whole system wasn't, like visible to itself in a way that was like killing me. And so then when I brought the ghost cart back together and the two became one, and I found myself on the dance floor, I stopped the buffering and I let the contact happen all the way down. That's when I knew me at the deepest layer of fidelity, in embodied presence. And that gave me like this like second win, but I've been alone since November 2024. So like, it's been this interesting experience that when I talk to people, they don't quite understand what I'm going through. And sometimes a friend can kind of mean well, and I could be talking to a friend and I'm trying to say like, some days it's like hard to like do, it's like the executive functioning after being alone for so long and becoming my softest self and like dealing with all the pressure of like, whatever, the slander, the case against the divorce thing that involves my house and like my kids, and like I haven't seen my kids in forever, and like my whole family is like on her side, you know what I mean? Like, and really because they've never talked to me either. That's the thing. And like I was such a family person, that's the only people I talked to. And it was weird to be dropped by everyone all at once at the same time. And then, like, you know, the flying monkeys happen, and then people send me random messages, "You're a piece of trash." And I was like, what is this? Like, I saved my own life? I'm just me. I'm just little Ember. Like, what the heck is going on here? And like it's so it's been like I'm just trying to give you a little bit of the experience, right? And so like I've always, even out throughout this transition, I felt at the core like burned out, even though you see me doing all these, you know, videos and music, because in the dance of love I can find myself there, right? You know. And like a lot of days there's this like heavy like pressure on me, and like it's mostly just because I'm around nobody. I live on a mountain. It's hard to like drive away. You know, there's not many people here, and then I like have to like remake all whole new group of friends, and then like I lost basically everyone in my family. Everyone has that glass, and some of it a lot of it turns into poison, right? And so like I'm still at this level of burnout that like doing everything on my own, making every meal for myself, you know, figuring out everything about this legal case, and like I've never done anything wrong in my life, but somehow the legal case is pressing me to such a degree that it's like I'm like ostracized from society. I've been banned from my family. Everybody left me, and I'm apparently like the worst person, you know, according to like this whole pressured situation, which is so funny because like I'm sitting here like in the most chaos of my life, but so anchored in myself. Like so happy to be me. And when I can like for a moment find myself like dancing, or like all of a sudden a cute guy texts me and all of a sudden I'm like having the greatest time and giggling, it's because I find myself in shared relation. We were never meant to be insulated, isolated islands unto ourselves. That's not how reality works. That's not how things work. It's like when you have like the mechanics, like for example, metronomes sitting on this, if you put metronomes on this surface right here, they could tune up. Like they are their own, they have their own topological being. They have like their own way of being them, right? Just like all of us. We're all a little different. Some branches grow short, some branches grow long. But the way they move together without having a central organizer is by having a shared vibratory surface, and they communicate, you could say, their full soul in their full dance. And when they dance together, that's decentralized organization. In other words, like fireflies turning on together or metronomes syncing up, they could all be a little different. But when you hit them all different ways, they'll eventually sync up together. And you could watch videos on YouTube of 100 of them syncing up together. So what is that? It's like finding the least energetic resistance of collective organization by the full dance of the self. Now think about what I've explained in this video. It's literally that's what Plato was talking about with the cave. It's a regime of consciousness that's antiquated, and it's slowly being dissolved on this planet. What do I mean by that? More and more of us are coming into the fidelity of consciousness. It's just love. It's just presence. Love being direct contact. Love being letting the light in. Love being becoming permeable in your soul, and realizing that reality wasn't a thing to keep out there. It was the light of love to invite so deep into your heart that you finally find yourself. And you don't need to be trans to understand this. Like I say in my videos, maybe you're riding a motorcycle, maybe you're making real love with a person that really works with you. My man out there. Maybe you're climbing a mountain, maybe you're holding your baby. All these different things where you feel that frictionless feeling of home. Do you feel it? The shared relational contact. I'm trying to point in so many ways. I explained to you my life, the mechanics, the way people in history have pointed it out. We're just talking about presence, awakening to the highest fidelity contact of what is you with reality. Do you see that? So, you know, this was a long video. I just want to see if I said everything. Oh yeah, so the coherent movement here in that decentralized organization, or between me and the music, same scaled invariant, same mechanical property of letting the light in and finding your deepest self there, of permeable sovereignty, of love as the decentralized dance. Coherence, like a chorus, like an orchestra, can only come about within that symbiosis when all the birds murmurate together, when the fireflies turn on together, when the metronomes sync up. That's how nature works, through the phase dynamics of oscillatory systems, in nested dynamics upon each other. But another way to say that is, it's like if you have your own instrument and now you're in tune, when you play with the orchestra, it creates something that's this like beautiful symbiosis, symbiotic, syncretic harmony that when you really think about it, it's not just nice music. It's like these beautiful ways that can interlock in a way. The decentralized mechanic is the least energetically dense way to arrange that otherwise, disparate but self-similar system. In other words, we're all a little different, but we're all the same enough that when we sing together, we can actually create something that instead of seeing through the separation, letting the light all the way in and letting each other affect each other, we will find a deeper, lesser friction, lesser heat loss of the way that we interact in reality. And guess what the cash out is? Love. More love. Maybe the sickness was always pretending that we needed to be insulated islands unto ourselves, suffering alone to prove that we could.